Welcome to The Explainer. Look, it doesn't matter if you're a student, a pro in your field, or just someone who loves to learn, you've seen it. The way we learn is changing, and it's changing fast. Today, we're going to talk about how technology is basically tearing down the old classroom walls and building something completely new. So let's just start with a really big question, one that's at the heart of this whole revolution. What if your education wasn't a one-size-fits-all deal? Imagine if every single lesson, every test, was designed specifically for you, to match how you learn, how fast you learn, and what you want to achieve. What would that even look like? But, to really get where we're going, we have to take a quick look back at the traditional model that, let's be honest, most of us grew up with. Yeah, think back to your school days for a second. We were all pretty much in the same boat, right? Same classroom, same textbook, same lecture, everyone moving at the same pace. And you got to ask yourself, in today's world, does that old industrial age assembly line model still make any sense? Because when you dig into it, you see this domino effect. That rigid cookie-cutter approach means the curriculum is inflexible. It struggles to measure different kinds of talents, and you often don't get feedback until days or weeks later. And all of this just piles on the pressure for teachers who are trying their best to manage a system not really built for individuals. So then the internet happened, and that was the first massive shakeup. E-learning started to tackle some of these big problems, especially when it came to the huge hurdles of cost and just being able to get to class. And the first thing everyone noticed? The money. The numbers are pretty wild. On average, an online college student saves more than $6,500 a year. That's a game-changing amount of money that suddenly opened the doors to higher ed for millions of people. And if we break it down by credit hour, you can see where those savings come from. Now, public, in-state schools are sometimes a bit cheaper on campus. But look at the private institutions. The difference is just staggering. About $500 for an online credit versus over $1,700 on campus. That's a massive, massive gap. Okay, so we get it. Online learning started to fix the cost and access problems, for sure. But that opened up a way more interesting question. Could technology make learning not just different, but actually better, more effective? And this is where things get really cool. This is where artificial intelligence steps into the ring. We're talking about moving way beyond just watching recorded lectures online and into a world of truly personal adaptive learning. The key concept here is something called adaptive learning. Okay, so imagine having a personal tutor who's also a data genius. It's constantly watching how you're doing, and in real time, it changes the material. If you're struggling, it makes it a bit easier. If you're flying through it, it gives you a bigger challenge. One study put it perfectly. The whole point of this adaptive e-learning is to basically give every single student their own private tutor. It's a one-to-one teaching model, but delivered on a massive scale. So that's the big idea. And it sounds amazing. But how does the tech actually pull it off? Let's get into the nuts and bolts of how AI actually builds these personalized learning paths for you. Well, it's all built around this idea called a closed loop. So first, the system is just watching. It's collecting data on every click, every answer, every pause. Then the AI brain kicks in and analyzes all of that to figure out your strengths and weaknesses. And based on that, it suggests the perfect next video or quiz for you and gives you instant feedback. It's this constant cycle of learn, analyze, adapt, repeat. And here's a really fascinating way that loop works. It can actually figure out your personal learning style. Are you a visual person who needs charts and diagrams to get it? Or maybe you're auditory, you learn best by listening. Or are you kinesthetic, someone who needs to get their hands dirty with a simulation? The AI figures that out and starts feeding you content in the exact format that works best for your brain. So what's the end result of all this? You get to learn at your own pace. It gets rid of that old model where everyone has to be on the same page on the same day. Instead, it's all about competency. You move on when you've actually mastered the skill, not when the calendar tells you to. All right, if that's what's happening right now, what's next? Well, we're starting to look even further ahead, beyond the flat screen and into these incredibly immersive, interactive virtual worlds. And, this whole idea of a shared virtual space, it isn't really new. The term was actually coined way back in 1992. A lot of people got their first taste of it with platforms like Second Life back in the 2000s. But now, with today's tech, it's becoming a real practical thing. And there are two key technologies driving this. First, you've got virtual reality, VR, where you put on a headset and boom, you are completely somewhere else. Then you have mixed reality, MR, which honestly might be even more powerful. It keeps you in your own room, but it overlays digital objects and information onto your physical world, like a hologram you can actually touch and move. The possibilities for education here are just mind-blowing. I mean, think about it. You could do a dangerous chemistry experiment in a perfectly safe virtual lab. You could walk the streets of ancient Rome and see it for yourself instead of just reading about it. These are the kinds of hands-on, engaging experiences that are pretty much impossible in a regular classroom. So we've gone from the rigid physical classroom to the flexible online course to the super smart AI tutor, and now we're heading into the immersive metaverse. Learning is becoming more personal, more powerful, and more accessible than it has ever been. But that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. Is the classroom itself kind of dissolves and learning can happen anywhere, anytime? What's the role of the teacher in this brave new world?